Hello and welcome to the Insight Edit. Today, Rob, I thought we could maybe talk about the power of human connection in film, video, animation. What do
Great
you
idea.
think? Yeah?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
The power of human connection. I guess we're all wired for it, right?
Yeah.
You know, at the heart of it is emotion,
Mm.
and if you can get that right, and it can be tricky to get right. You know, there's a lot you can go with that. I think as humans we process facts, we feel. I think the quote I heard, and we use it obviously quite a lot, is that if you can make someone feel something, have an emotion, they'll connect with the film a lot more. They'll connect with the message a lot more.
Yeah, a film's not just about informing and fact-telling. It is about moving you, isn't
Definitely.
it? You
Yeah.
know, whatever the subject might be, whether it's food related and you want to make someone feel hungry,
Yeah.
not just tell them something's $2.99 now on an offer. You want them to crave that.
Yeah.
And the same if we're talking medical, we want someone to feel for their story, not just understand something, but really understand how
Yeah.
that's impacted someone and how maybe that could impact you or someone you know in the future.
And even on like a CEO message or something, you can still, because I think sometimes where we kind of get it wrong is when it's like we've got this message to put over, but actually how they deliver the message can still give you that emotional effect and that connection with the audience through the screen.
Where do you think that comes from? Like, what part of that process are you able to sort of establish what will, resonate with an audience?
The storytelling part you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all wired for stories, aren't we? From a young age, we sit with our parents. They tell us stories. Whether it's through books or their own experiences. We tell each other about experience and stories in a way. So I think inside your heart, inside like human psyche, you are. I'm not saying I'm a psychologist.
I was about to say, we need to establish here.
Yeah, we're not a psychologist. No, definitely not psychologists. But we do know a lot about telling stories.
Yeah.
That is the truth, right? So, but I still think it comes from here. If you look at some of our clients why is the Gruffalo such an amazing story? Why is Room on a Broom? Why is the reason why some posts will get thousands and thousands of likes and others won't? Because at the end of the day, what we are doing is we are connecting on some level, not always on every level, on some level, whether it's anger or it's love or it's whatever emotion it might be, we are connecting with what we're watching on some level. Even when you're scrolling on TikTok or
Well, that's
Instagram.
the thing. It's like brand films and films in that corporate space aren't any different to feature films, in
No
the
difference
sense that
whatsoever.
there's a reason everyone has a favourite film or a favourite TV show because it makes them feel a certain way and they like the way it makes them
Yeah,
feel.
absolutely.
It's not just telling you a story, it's making you feel a story.
Yeah.
And that works for so many genres. People watch things like horror films because they like the feeling of being scared. I like that.
The feeling of fear.
Yeah, and I like
Yeah.
that. So I love horror films because of it. I'm not just watching horror films
Yeah.
blankly. I'm watching it because I like that suspense that it gives me and that feeling of panic. Why I would do that to myself, I don't really know. But I like
don't know
that.
either,
But
Colin,
I
by the
go
way.
back for them because of it. And
Yeah.
brand films and corporate worlds are no different if you can just make someone feel, because you'll have a specific audience you're trying to reach
Absolutely.
who will tap into those emotions probably quite naturally as
Yeah.
well. That's where
I think sometimes that's what's missed, though, isn't it? Because if I think about some of the projects we do, where we go, okay, so how can we put down a hook here? What are the kind of nuances within the audience where we can make them feel, make them really feel for the people they're watching, I go back to it, the talking head who's talking about something they've described in their lives, or an animation where we want to kind of give across a sense of kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, kind of emotional bit, the authentic bit, isn't it? You want to kind of draw that audience in a way where they will. You're not just delivering on a message, are you?
no.
So you're trying to do more than that, and sometimes that can be quite tricky.
The thing is, you're trying to give them a full sensory experience, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like, you want every part of the element
Yeah.
covered because they all work hand in hand. I mean, I can't remember there is like a statistic about like things like sound are just important as visuals, if not more important.
More important.
And all those little things, when they're added together,
Yeah.
the full package, for connecting and feeling something, which is important. It's just
Yeah,
important
I
to
think
remember all that
a
sort of
really,
stuff.
really great piece of content. It won't just inform you; it will move you, and that's where I think we just need to get to a lot more as well. You talk about sound. I don't know if you've ever heard the quote that we hear through our eyes.
No, I've never
Yeah.
heard that.
So the people say you don't hear through your ears; you hear through your eyes because your eyes are drawn into the image, and therefore
Your brain
that
will process it surely
your brain
quicker, won't it?
exactly, and it'll those moments in films where you start crying or you're scared, in your
Yeah.
case of in loving horror, and that's done. Obviously it's clearly a combination of sound and visuals, right? But it's all the different elements that make up the content that the corporate world that we're in creates. It's those special ones where you've really gone to town on it, and you've done that. You tested things, and it's hard. It's almost like a nuance within that that's kind of quite hard to describe sometimes because it just works, doesn't it?
What do you feel like the difference is in terms of what you're able to do from an emotional point of view between live action and animation? Because they are different and they can achieve different things.
Yeah, I think through live action, you've got that authenticity, haven't you? These are real people in real situations, delivering a message or watching them. I don't know, cook. But it's against the juxtaposition that is they're cooking in a kitchen, but they've got some disease or something going on, obviously within the pharma space that we do, and that has a very different thing to animation, because within animation what you're trying to do through the visuals, and some of them are conceptual and some of them will be characters, you're trying to do that through a look, you're trying to do that through expression in the eyes, you're trying to do that in the way they approach someone and the aesthetic of it, and within the mix of all of that is obviously the sound, sound effects, because you're trying to, in some respects we're trying to sort of emulate the real life pieces, aren't we? Within animation. I mean, obviously the ones that are absolute masters of this is Pixar.
I was about to say, like, if I was watching a film, I don't cry at stuff really, but the only stuff that really would make me cry or I feel more upset when watching is animation over live action, and I don't know what it is about a squirrel losing its nuts or something like, but the way they can tell that as opposed to live action just makes you feel. I think what it is there's some with animation you're allowed to be a little bit more outside of the box with facial expressions, and especially things that on a day-to-day you may not notice have expressions.
Absolutely.
And
hyper insinuate in it, aren't you?
Something about animation, like in Moana. This is embarrassing to say, to be honest, because I'd
be embarrassed. Conor,
I don't know how old I was when Moana came out.
Give us an authentic experience here.
Moana. When did Moana come out? Like
5 years ago?
Yeah, so I must have been like 24, 5.
Because they've just launched
4.
the new
number
Moana.
2, yeah.
Number 2.
When that film came out and the grandma died, spoiler for anyone that's never seen, and she turns into a stingray, crying.
Haven't seen it.
But explain to me why I'm crying at someone dying and turning into a stingray spirit.
Because
there's something about that tapped in.
Yeah.
It was everything though. It was the sound, it was the pace. There was so much to it.
But also,
It's
is that
just
not
weird,
is that
isn't
not in
it?
some respects reflecting on maybe your grandmother?
Maybe.
Where she is in her
Yeah.
life. I mean, if you think about Nemo, right? Nemo's an absolute classic. It's about a father trying to rescue his son, right? The only son that's left in this, all the eggs that get eaten. Okay, so, and that taps into into the kind of the human spirit, doesn't it? What's in here? It just taps into all of our lives, because in some respect we can all relate to the stories that are being told in Moana, in Finding Nemo, and I think bringing it back to the kind of the corporate space that we work in, when you're talking about patient stories, for example, there is a specific audience that we are reaching to within that, right? So therefore, what we're looking for in that situation is what are the it's kind of what are the heartstrings we want to pull within that situation, where someone who's also in that situation can identify with that person, because ultimately that's the reason why those patients have been picked. Okay, so what are the heartstrings we can pull? But along with that is how can we make it identifiable to the audience? Not just the heartstring, but identifiable to the audience, but also finding a narrative, an authentic narrative that would work for the story we're trying to tell, so it's relatable to other people. Okay, I think that's what we try and do, and I think there is a thing that video makes you feel and animation makes you understand. Within our corporate space, obviously, we've talked about Pixar and that kind of thing, which does more than just make you understand. It definitely makes you feel.
So I have a question for you, and I'll set some context around
Okay,
this. And I am going off script
feel quite
a bit
worried
for
here.
this.
Feel really worried here.
So we've already touched upon sound being very important, and I know because everyone's different, aren't they, with the way they learn and stuff. Some people are practical, some people are visual and whatnot. I know for me, what resonates a lot is sound and the music choice, and maybe because I feel like you could watch something in the first 10 seconds, understand the energy of something, whether it's an upbeat, drummy track, whether it's a slow ballad, or maybe there's no music at all and that's purposeful for a reason. So how do you still make sure you can convey as much emotion and that connection when an element is taken away? And in that example, what I'm referencing there is when we've made films for like Sign Health, which predominantly are going to be for audiences who are deaf or partially hearing.
Hard of hearing.
So how do you still make sure that full experience works when an element is dropped away?
I can easily answer that. The way we do that is because then there's a new language here, right? There's sign. There's definitely a new language in that. So within the essence of signing, when we got someone on set signing, the way that they are signing, the expressions in their eyes, what do they say? The eyes are the portal to your soul. So within that context, that's where you get the emotion. When you're talking about films for the deaf community, that's a very specific community, right?
And audience,
An audience. So they will, please tell me if I'm wrong here, but they will understand the nuances of how someone is signing to give you that emotional effect.
Sure. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
How do we change things like perspectives in films? Like, what is it in a film that can challenge your views?
When you're talking about changing perspectives, I think film does that a lot and can do that a lot, but I think you have to challenge those perspectives. We made a film about Alzheimer's, and the context of that was changing people's perspective on it, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the whole premise of it, really.
The whole premise of it was change our perspective around Alzheimer's, and that was showing two sides to the story. So the classic story almost of what people expect Alzheimer's looks like, and then the perspective, the parallel of that was showing someone who had possible early onset Alzheimer's. Okay, and we'd like to think that film did change perspective, 100% change perspective in the way that people will now view Alzheimer's.
And I suppose that kind of storytelling comes from those early stage creative brainstorming sessions and so on, and understanding the objectives and the insights to the industry,
patient advocacy.
That's where I think pre-production is so important. Not just to jump straight into things like scripting, but really think about what it is this film needs to do, whether it's animation, live action. Really understanding that is important.
If you are going to look to change perspectives within a group, or change perspective on someone or a subject matter, you've got to understand the audience. You absolutely have to understand what is the status quo now that perhaps everyone has not got wrong, but understands. We understand A is this, but actually what we want you to do is understand that A is actually B. Okay, so we want you to change perspectives in that way. And to do that, you have to understand the audience that think A is the norm. But what we want to say is actually A isn't the norm. B really is how things really are for the audience that we want the piece of content to talk to.
What I think animation does really well, and you can definitely do this in live action as well, but I think what animation does very well is it's able to take complex ideas and help simplify them for audiences.
Absolutely.
Because there's nothing worse than watching something and getting lost and feeling no connection to
Yeah.
something. And maybe it's a boring subject matter told in a fun and creative way,
Yeah.
or maybe it is a very complex subject matter that you need some sort of mechanism in order to understand
Yeah.
it, which we've done a lot of
Yep,
in the
we
past,
have.
and there's loads of agencies and creators out there that do that kind of thing.
And do it brilliantly.
Yeah, and I think I like that side of animation personally because I think it's a very, very clever way of using animation to tell stories.
I think the other thing about animation as well is what it can do is we can take, something that doesn't exist, like a piece of software, for example, okay, and show the customer journey for that piece of software to explain it. And it could be with a square, a triangle. It doesn't have to be like a screenshot of the piece of software. You can tell that journey in so many different
abstract way.
in a very abstract way, and still get that emotional element through music, through sound effects, through how the voiceover artist, that tone of voice, you can still bring, your audience on a journey through and really change perspectives around what someone might think it is.
And I think when we then want to flip it on its head and think live action, I think when everyone thinks live action, they think there has to be a shoot day involved. But actually, as much as we don't want to promote it, stock footage films can be very impactful
They can.
if done correctly and
done
it's
well.
not the same footage you find on Adobe Stock everywhere and
Absolutely
everywhere.
right, yeah.
It can be like I've seen.
Not dissing Adobe Stock, by
No,
the way.
we love you. Hello, sponsor us. But I've seen like some amazing stock footage films.
Yeah.
I've seen some recently this year, and like I had to question if it was stock footage because I was like, this is so good, like so good, and it was just so. It wasn't.
But was it good because the footage itself was good? Because
No.
I guess
Yes
that's the thing.
and no.
Yeah, so the thing here is like there's stock footage films which you go, yeah, stock film, and then there are stock footage films.
Yes, this stock footage wasn't your everyday
Yeah.
stock footage. It was crafted stock footage, is what I'll say. And not only was it crafted stock footage, but it was elevated further by the agency themselves. So there's that point to add
Yeah.
as well. But what complemented it well was the storytelling and the thought process and the strategy behind it, and therefore the selection of said stock,
Yeah.
and not just finding something that just fits. It was
Yeah.
really crafting a story out of it and really testing it and trialing it, and it was amazing. But I think
And I'm sure some of the footage in there is probably abstract.
yeah,
So
it
you
was
couldn't-
very abstract.
Yeah, so it's very abstracty. It probably had lots of sound effects.
Yes,
to really kind
sound
of
is
punch
a
through.
big part of it.
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been absolutely incredible.
But I think when people think live action, they just think it's got to be
Someone going out with a camera
a big
and
shoot.
filming.
Yeah, maybe there's got to be actors. Maybe it's not actors and it is just a talking head, but it needs to be a palaver,
Yeah.
if you want to say that, to call it the bigger piece.
Yeah, yeah.
We love a live action film. That's what we want to be doing all the
Absolutely.
time. But there are other ways of telling stories and still being able to get that same level of impact. And maybe that avenue of creative is actually better suited for it anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe for things like timelines, budgets, or just the abstractness of it,
Yeah.
maybe.
Because it's not necessarily, more cost effective. I guess on some levels
No.
it is more cost effective because you haven't got to do global shoots and etc.
Yeah.
etc. But the kind of the craft of making that stock footage really, really work hard does involve more time,
Yes,
doesn't it?
yeah.
To really, you said it a number of times here. It looked amazing. It felt amazing. The emotion, I felt the emotion when it jumped out the screen at me,
Yeah.
and that's because the creators of that piece of content must have really, really thought about the audience, really thought how they're going to use metaphors through this abstract footage, and then obviously layer that up with sound. And is there voiceover in it? I don't know, but sound and voiceover and graphics and animation, just to kind of tie that kind of world to life, again, to make the audience feel something.
I was supposed to say that takes me to my next point. Really, is that it's. I know earlier we talked about like it needs to have the full sensory experience of the sort of the sounds and touch in the sense that you could imagine what something would feel like when you're watching something, but there's like almost like another second layer under that, which is things like the use of colour and the use of shapes, the use of pacing or motion, or the symbolism of stuff, and that's where I think brands that need to consider things like that is really important, especially when you're making things like brand films and maybe have never done something before and you have a beautiful brand book but actually you've never seen it move before, and you may have had this brand book for 5 years and never made a video and never actually thought about how does our logo move.
Absolutely.
Those little things
No,
I
absolutely.
don't think you think about until you're challenged with having to bring it to life, the next step further.
And how can I bring that, that simple thing, I mean, simple, but, a simple thing to life to give the logo a character?
Yeah.
I know I've talked about Pixar already, but you think about the Pixar lamp.
Yeah.
It's so iconic now, isn't it? And it's a lamp.
Yeah.
And they've brought to life in it, and it's quite funny.
Oh,
When you've seen it a million times, it's still funny.
Yeah.
And I think that I sometimes think with the world that we operate in and support and advise, that I guess one of my wishes would, if clients were just a bit braver sometimes, would just like go outside their comfort zone, because sometimes when we have done this and taken clients outside their comfort zone, the end result is something quite special, because you're not kind of constrained by, yes, we'll always be constrained by the brand, and that's absolutely fine, and the tone of voice, etc. But you can still stretch that a little bit further to be a bit braver, to get a bigger impact.
I agree.
To make your audience feel, to put the facts across, to give the impact that you're really after. And that just takes being just a little bit braver sometimes. I mean, yes, there are brands that go way, way out there, but there are also brands I feel that could just stretch a little bit further.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like we're going to go against anything.
No.
It's not against who you are or how you should
Absolutely
sound
not.
or how you should look. But like you say, it is just taking that little step further and doing something that little bit different next time.
And I know when we have done that and it's been executed really, really well, the brand does appreciate it. And I understand if you are a brand manager, a marketing manager, HR manager.
It's the last thing you need.
You're kind of going, I don't want to be brave because I don't want to put myself out there. But, we know, and I'm sure other agencies feel the same, is that if they just did that a bit more, it would just resonate with the audience a bit more. It's like, it ends up in here, doesn't it, basically?
I'm going to move on to something else.
You going for a cup of tea or something?
No, not just yet.
Okay.
So going to live action, I think there is always a conversation every time we have a project that's live action to the question on, are these actors or are these real people? And real people being, are these our employees?
Yeah.
Or are these real patients, depending on the setting? That conversation is had all the time. I think when we've got, at least in our case, I know we've experienced it where, if there's a reason for acting, because it's maybe more of a product or something that makes total sense. But, if you're making things like a recruitment film or an office tour, employees, actors, I think understanding that and also the repercussions of doing that.
So I think it depends, Con. I think that depends. So I do feel that sometimes maybe hang up's the wrong word to use, but when, sometimes, we've gone into clients' offices and said, and we've got a project come in, and they say, look, we want this to be evergreen, which is the classic thing we get a lot of here, right? So we want this to be evergreen because we want it to last longer. Okay, so should we use employees in this situation, or should we use actors? So let's say it's an office tour.
I was going to say context is relevant.
Context is absolutely relevant. Let's say it's an office tour. So I'd say in that situation actors is absolutely the way to go. Okay, they are actors. They will deliver it in a much better way than an employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, if you're getting actors in to do client testimonials.
Yeah, or our career development stories.
Yeah. Do not do
No,
that.
it doesn't work.
Because however authentic the actor comes across, they don't understand your business.
I think we also, as creatives and working with actors, I've seen testimonials before where I'm like, that's not a real person,
No.
that's an actor.
You can spot it a mile off.
Yeah,
can't you?
and
An absolute
maybe
mile
we
off.
can read that because we know what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would show my mum if she would be able to spot that. I'm going to probably say she wouldn't. She'd probably go, wow, they're very confident for getting in front of the camera. I couldn't do that. But we can.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's important to just really consider.
Does the audience care? I suppose yeah.
There's that as well.
But there's adverts on, I don't know, one of the channels at the moment, and they're selling some vitamin tablet or something, and it's clearly an actor. I mean, it's so unbelievably obvious. But does the audience care?
I suppose the point
I'd
I'm
like to
making
think on
here
some
is
level they would. But okay, so let's talk about a recruitment film, right? I genuinely think that getting actors in to make your recruitment film is not the right way to go at all, because an audience will spot if it's an actor. Because if you're an employee that works in that environment all the time, you can pick up on the vibe, right? You can pick up on the language. You can pick up on the way they're talking. So getting an actor to do that, however much you script them and get them to, act it, it's not the same.
No, I think that's where I was trying to come from, is about that authenticity, because that is what people can read, and that is, at the end of the day, what is going to hopefully connect with audiences.
Yeah.
Which you can obviously still do through actors as well, but again, it depends on the context of the video. And it's interesting when we think of things like the pharma world, because that's where you really think you should be authentic to someone, especially if it's a patient story. But actually, then there's an ethical side to it, as to should this person be on camera.
Absolutely, really good point.
Because of who they are. And that's again where maybe sometimes you'll have an actor to actually come in to tell their story for them. It's not we're just going to write what we want them to say because we think they would say this. You would maybe just go about the subject matter a lot differently. You would maybe get a written testimonial from said patient, but have an actor portray the answers and establish that also. And establish that this is not a patient, this is an actor. Be transparent in that respect.
Absolutely.
Because it also just helps the audience, just understand further the deepness around this message and the sort of the feeling and impact that this has had on someone's life.
And that does happen quite a lot in the pharma space. And that can be equally as powerful.
And crime.
And yes.
Because you see that a lot. Well, it's no
Well,
different
you do.
than crime.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
When you're watching, what's the one? Watchdog?
Crime
Is it called
Stoppers, is
Watchdog? Whatever it's called. You see it
Body
online.
cam, whatever.
You see it in those scenarios as well. It's the same thing. It's still someone's real story.
Yes.
It's just got to be told slightly differently.
Yeah.
And they're aesthetically done in a certain way. The black silhouette, whatever.
The classic.
You do it again to add that level of drama, suspense to it.
Mystery. Some level.
Yeah. I suppose at the end of the day, what you want, brand films, animations, whatever it might be for you as a client, you just want you want audiences to just remember you.
Yeah.
For whatever reason it might be, you want them to remember, you want them to feel, hopefully change of perspective and spark something within them, whatever feeling that might be.
Yes, whatever feeling.
That's what everyone's goal is. You don't just make a film to make a film and say something.
Absolutely.
You make a film to inform someone on something because of a certain subject matter that's actually quite impactful, maybe not to them, but someone they know.
Yeah.
That always needs to be remembered throughout the whole creative process, not just in those early stages of creative development. And I've got an idea, great. But when you get into filming, when you get into the animation, the styling, or in post-production, remembering not to just whack on sound.
Yes.
It's
Craft
how
it.
sound, really craft
really
it in
craft
every
that
stage.
sound.
Yeah.
I think also just, like you said, Connor, just remembering the reason why this film is being made all the way through, remembering the audience we're talking to, remembering, all the way along the goals of the client,
Yeah.
and, we like to elevate everything we do, don't we? We like, however much time we've got, we love to elevate everything we do. So we'll look for those, and I'm sure other agencies do as well. We look for those moments where we can elevate that sliver of connection, that sliver of emotion, obviously depending on the film that we're making. So it's always keeping that in mind.
And I will just end this here, because what feels really lovely, and we've experienced this, and I'm sure you have outside of NRG, but I've experienced it here physically with clients, is actually watching something with the client for the first time and seeing the emotion that it makes you feel. Like, there's a couple of scenarios where that's happened before.
Let's tell us.
I know it was Sign Health, and we made a film, I think it was the one around domestic abuse, and signs of domestic abuse, and how domestic abuse can come in very different forms, through sexual to physical to financial, mental. And we told that story in a really beautiful way, and we actually got a chance to show the client physically with them, and I think she started crying.
She did start crying, yeah. I remember it's coming flooding back to me.
And I felt bad. It was just weird. I felt bad because I knew at the end of the day we've made something that's made her cry. But I suppose you've got to remember that was not the point to make someone cry, but the point was to spark that emotion. And they feel that emotion that the film was trying to portray. And watching that actually happen in front of you is quite a magical thing, because really you've done the job. You've done it right.
The film we made for the Brown film that Silent Paul still runs to this day, 8 years on.
Oh, yeah.
When we sat down, the MD of the company down, they came to our offices and we sat down, put up the big screen, made a bit of a kind of spectacle about it, and we put it on, we dimmed the lights, got the atmosphere right, and we played the film. At the end of the film, there was silence, and then you're thinking,
what was that?
Oh my God, this is like, why are they? And then
we paid for this.
Yeah. But I felt like, what have we done wrong here? And he just said, it's the best thing I've ever seen. It's like, you have captured our brand in such a way, and not just like the beauty of Silent Paul Gin, not just the craft of Silent Paul Gin, he said, but I felt it. And that's what ultimately, as filmmakers, that's what we're trying to do, isn't it? All the time.
If you enjoyed today's episode, then make sure to give us a follow wherever you are watching. And if you've got any questions or topics you want us to discuss in a future episode, leave them in the comments, and we will try to get back to you in another episode.
Yeah. And we really do want to hear... I can't say it. We'll just end on you.
No, we'll end there. Nice attempt. Bye-bye. I think we should actually end it.